faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally's Book Club. Today I'm interpreting the book Happiness Beyond Perfection. Many people dream of a perfect family, perfect career, and perfect life. Sure, chasing perfection can push us toward better, happier lives. However, if you overdo the perfection pursuit, it can actually block your happiness. Surveys show many successful folks feel unhappy because they think they haven't nailed that perfect life where everything feels blissful. Yep, this excessive chase for perfection leaves many who seem well off, missing out on the inner satisfaction and peace they deserve. So, is there a way to ditch perfectionism that lets us keep aiming high for a better life while still finding happiness? Absolutely. The book we're covering today offers a solution. Becoming an optimalist, that's optimal, as in striving for the best. This approach was cooked up by the author, Tal Ben-Shahar. Tal has a dual bachelor in psychology and philosophy from Harvard, plus a PhD in organizational behavior from there, too. While teaching at Harvard, his positive psychology course got voted the most popular by students for years running. Students even hailed him as the go-to life coach. Beyond Harvard, he teaches and counsels institutions, communities, and crisis groups globally.
Tal's also a bestseller. His book, The Pursuit of Happiness, hit #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Sally's Book Club has covered this book before. So, what exactly is Tal's optimalism? How do we make optimalism happen? I'll break this down in two parts. First, what's perfectionism? Second, how to wave goodbye to perfectionism and step into optimalism. What is perfectionism? It's a mindset rooted in constant dissatisfaction and imperfection, driving an intense hunt for flawlessness. Honestly, many don't mind being called perfectionists. Some even brag in job interviews that their top trait is chasing perfection to show off their work dedication. However, being diligent, responsible, and meticulous at work isn't the same as perfectionism. The perfectionism mentioned in this book that hinders people's happiness usually shows up in these ways. I. First off, perfectionists have a rigid attitude toward goals. What does rigid mean? We can break it down into these levels to understand. First, perfectionists only care about the end goal, thinking the journey has no value. What does that mean? Not sure if you've seen a movie called Click, where the guy gets a remote that fast forwards his life. Since the guy only saw career success as the end, he fast forwarded all the tough times and daily stuff, like moments with his parents, his wife's nagging, and his kids' noisy phases. Eventually, the remote breaks down. Time zooms ahead. He quickly gets the career win he wanted, but realizes he's missed out on life's truly important times. Though the movie's fake, real life has plenty like this. Some work overtime nonstop to climb the ladder faster, only to miss their wife's pregnancy or their kids' milestones. Others push their kids to ace piano level 10 with harsh daily drills, even wrecking the parent-child bond. Ask yourself, do you ever only see the finish line and think the journey doesn't matter? And plus, perfectionists rarely adjust goals. For instance, a young guy decides to pass the civil service exam, so he skips job hunting and studies hard at home. After failing for 3 years, he still won't change course.
Because perfectionists believe that once they set a goal, it must be hit, or else it's total failure.
Even if they're miserable or it doesn't fit them along the way, they won't budge. Do you ever get stuck in that kind of obsession? Like with an optional certificate, you passed one or two parts, so you gotta finish all, even if the long prep leaves you drained. Or you're dead set on moving up in your current team, so you turn down other chances. Rigid. The second level means perfectionists have an all or nothing extreme view of goals. Simply put, they think everything only has two sides, right or wrong, good or bad, win or lose. As psychologist Arthur P. Johnson said, for perfectionists, the spectrum has just two ends. They can't grasp there's a middle zone. The author gives his own example. Years ago, he was Israel's youngest squash champion. He set a goal to become world champion and secretly vowed that if he couldn't achieve it, he'd quit squash. Because he was desperate to reach his goal, he ignored his physical condition and trained relentlessly. Eventually, his body couldn't take it, covered in injuries, and he had to prematurely end his professional sports career at age 21. Many people have had this kind of all or nothing mindset. And this mindset is the middle ground really worthless? For example, in a competition, if you know you can't win first place, should you just not participate at all? Learning to find meaning in different outcomes, wouldn't life be easier? The third aspect of rigidity refers to perfectionists constantly searching for flaws and being harsh on themselves and others during their journey toward goals. As the famous American thinker Emerson said, for different minds, the same world can be either hell or heaven. Our subjective perception of the world determines how it appears to us. For instance, when thirsty, if there's only half a glass of water on the table, a perfectionist wouldn't feel happy or satisfied. They might even get anxious about it. They always focus on what's lacking and ignore what they already have. You can imagine a perfectionist as a computer program that constantly corrects errors. If there's even a small mistake, this program will pop up a red warning and emit a sharp beep, alerting you to the error. In short, perfectionists believe that doing things perfectly is a way to be responsible to themselves and others. So, in your work or life, have there been times when you couldn't tolerate even a small mistake from yourself or others? That covers the first manifestation of perfectionism, a rigid attitude toward goals. Next, let's discuss the second manifestation of perfectionism. They have extremely high demands for success, mainly shown in two aspects. First, perfectionist pursuit of success has no end. Here, the author mentions Sisyphus from Greek mythology, who was punished by the gods to push a huge boulder up a hill day after day, only to watch it roll back down forever. However, Sisyphus was forced to push the rock, but for perfectionists, they do it voluntarily. In their minds, success is like Sisyphus's boulder.
No matter what achievements they make, they ignore them, set another goal, and keep pushing that rock uphill.
Honestly, many people fall into this trap, constantly raising the bar for promotions and chasing success nonstop at work.
In life, after finally getting an apartment, they immediately dream of a luxury penthouse with a yard, never feeling satisfied.
No matter how successful they become, they never pause to enjoy a moment of happiness. Secondly, their extreme demands also show in expecting success in every single aspect. For example, someone might achieve career success but still lack confidence due to their humble background or low education. Another might finally have adorable children but feel they've lost their figure and sense of self. They can't tolerate any weaknesses in life and believe truly well-rounded, successful people exist. The final perfectionist trait is suppressing and hiding negative emotions when facing harsh realities. What does harsh mean? It means any reality falling short of perfectionist expectations, like losing a promotion, a child failing exams, or separation from loved ones. They believe life should overflow with positive emotions. Negative ones shouldn't be expressed or even exist. You might say, nobody consciously thinks that way.
Yet in daily life, maybe that's exactly what you're doing.
For instance, when a child falls and cries, you say, be strong, don't cry. When grieving a loss, you say, accept fate, don't be too sad. When consoling a heartbroken friend, you advise, they're not worth your tears. Cheer up! Why do we reject negative emotions? It stems from childhood lessons. Don't cry when sad, don't show joy when successful, don't envy friends' achievements.
So, subconsciously, we believe normal people must stay emotionally flat and never show feelings naturally.
After hearing this, how would you assess yourself? Of course, few are perfectionists in every area. For example, someone might easily forgive work mistakes, but demand flawless relationships or tolerate a messy home, yet rage over a child's scribbled homework. Generally, the more someone cares about something, the more likely they are to apply perfectionist thinking in that area. The more areas a person exhibits perfectionism in, the more vulnerable they become to its negative consequences. So, what are these consequences? First is low self esteem. William James, the father of American psychology, defined self esteem with a formula: self worth equals achievements divided by expectations. Since perfectionists demand extreme success, their expectations are sky high. That makes the denominator huge, inevitably resulting in low self worth. Say someone expects first place but gets second. Their self esteem takes a hit, but if they expected third and got second, their self esteem actually rises. That's why many high achievers who seem confident are actually full of insecurity. Perfectionism also causes depression. Understandable, since perfectionists are extreme goal chasers. Like a sailor who only sees the distant lighthouse, missing the blue waters, golden sunlight, leaping dolphins, and ocean breeze. Their life journey becomes a joyless pilgrimage. They rarely savor small pleasures or relax, always tense. Eventually, their strange nerves snap, causing depression. Perfectionism also breeds anxiety disorders. Because perfectionists can't tolerate tiny errors, they feel surrounded by crises, always firefighting, like hovering when their husband cooks, convinced he'll ruin it otherwise, or manually checking every number on a subordinate's report. Obsessive vigilance keeps them constantly on edge. Naturally, anxiety disorders easily develop. Plus, perfectionist rigid thinking makes them inflexible. Once decided, they won't budge. Like forcing kids into iron rice bowl civil service jobs, or insisting cash is safer than digital payments. Simply put, they struggle in our fast-changing, ever-evolving world. Facing such pressures, how could they not feel anxious? Hearing this, you might wonder, since perfectionism distances us from happiness, should we just lie flat and lower all standards? Of course, there's no need for that. The author has long told us that we can choose a path that avoids the downsides of perfectionism while still pursuing a better life. That's optimalism. Now, moving to the second part of the book: how to bid farewell to perfectionism and embrace optimalism. So, what exactly is optimalism? The Oxford English Dictionary defines optimal as the best or most advantageous in a given situation. Simply put, optimalism means choosing the most favorable solution while acknowledging limitations, and it can be seen as a positive form of perfectionism. By contrasting perfectionism's traits, the author summarizes optimalism's key characteristics. First, compared to perfectionism's rigid approach to goals, optimism is flexible, which will break down into several levels. 4. First, optimalists value outcomes but don't see the process as worthless. For example, an optimalist competing in a sports event, even if they don't achieve their desired ranking, they'll still see that time spent striving toward the goal as valuable for growth. Because optimalism doesn't fear failure like perfectionism or focus solely on results, they bounce back from setbacks and are more likely to succeed. The second level means optimalism doesn't view goals in all or nothing terms. For instance, an optimalist squash player might aim for world champion, but they also see possibilities between winning it all and quitting. They might start by participating, gradually improving their rank, or adapt training to their body, extending the timeline. Even if they fail, they won't give up entirely. They'll keep enjoying squash. Oh, remember, optimalists live in a more complex, rational world compared to perfectionists' black and white view. The third level is that optimalists are forgiving toward themselves and others, accepting flaws and learning from mistakes. If an optimalist is a leader, they won't constantly hunt for subordinates' mistakes. Instead, they focus on achievements. If an optimalist mother, she won't obsess over every word or action, fearing mistakes, but calmly accepts them and focuses on her child's progress. Finally, optimalism releases goal obsession, believing there are many paths to success. This doesn't mean optimists are fickle. They adapt to personal and societal changes. For example, an optimalist who studied a trendy major but finds few jobs after graduation might switch fields or explore different industries. If an optimalist parent sees their child struggling academically, they might discover other talents or alternative education paths. The second optimalist trait, their success standards are reality-based. What does that mean? First, optimalists acknowledge current successes and feel gratitude. Unlike endlessly pushing boulders, they pause atop mountains to savor blue skies and breezes, thanking their efforts as happiness blooms. This isn't complacency. They still strive, but with greater joy in the journey. Second, optimalists accept limited time or resources and make intentional trade-offs. The author shares his 20s perfectionism as a new father. He believed he could perfectly balance family, career, friends, and health. But frustration grew. Too many goals left all areas feeling inadequate. Why? He realized no one excels everywhere. We must prioritize within limits. 6 weekly workouts for peak fitness became 2, and that was enough. 3 friend meetups weekly became 1. By accepting reality and adjusting expectations, then he found his stress greatly reduced, and he even felt content with this life. Finally, when facing harsh realities, optimalists accept their negative emotions. This acceptance shows their respect for reality. But why accept emotions? Try this little experiment by psychologist Daniel Wegner. You'll understand acceptance's importance. For the next 10 seconds, keep telling yourself, don't imagine a white bear. 1, 2, 3, 10. Did you succeed? Chances are, the more you said don't think, the more you thought about it. But later, like now, the thought fades naturally. Same with emotions. Anxiety, anger, jealousy. The harder you suppress them, the fiercer they surge. Only by acknowledging and experiencing negative emotions can they truly fade. For optimalists, acceptance is the optimal response to negativity. This doesn't stop us from acting humanely after accepting our humanity. Meaning, say your friend gets headhunted with a huge salary and marries a rich hottie. You admit feeling jealous, that's human, but won't sabotage them. After jealousy fades, you still celebrate them. That's humane. Clearly, optimalism brings happiness. So, how do we embrace optimalism? I'll guide you through 4 dimensions: work, education, relationships, and self, to replace perfectionism with optimalist thinking. First, work. Applying optimalist thinking here has 2 key points. First, embrace failure. Let's see examples. Michael Jordan missed over 9,000 shots and lost 300 games in his career. 26 losses came from him missing game-winning shots. President Abraham Lincoln was unemployed at 22 and failed miserably in business. He developed an anxiety disorder at 27. Failed his house run at 34, lost a Senate race at 46, finally won presidency 2 years later. History's full of great failures. Proof failure isn't terrifying. Now look at yourself. If your boss demands 0 mistakes, would you avoid risks entirely? If you're the boss, micromanaging to prevent errors, would your team become timid and avoid responsibility? Perfectionists avoid innovation at work, paralyzed by fear of failure. But optimalists see failure as necessary, eliminating wrong paths to find success. Applying optimalism at work. Second, prioritize recovery. Recovery means fully recharging after intense work, not chasing unrealistic perfection.
Like constantly monitoring work chats, jumping at bosses' messages, or skipping vacations for Employee of the Year.
Recovery is optimalist's strategic choice during high-pressure work. Whether a 3 p.m. coffee break, short-term, good nightly sleep, medium-term, or annual vacation, long-term. Though seeming unproductive, it boosts next phase efficiency, making you doubly effective. How do we apply optimalism to education? Education's unique. It's about shaping the next generation, not ourselves. So optimalist parenting aims to raise optimalist thinkers. This has 2 aspects. First, ditch perfect parenting. The author noticed wealthy students, despite privilege, often lacked happiness, abused drugs, and developed depression or anxiety. Psychologist Sonia's research traced this to their perfectionist parents. These parents fear any misstep, controlling every aspect. They constantly monitor and evaluate their child's every behavior. Eventually, children learn one thing: never make mistakes. This internalized anxiety follows them everywhere. They may excel but find no joy. Unsurprisingly, they become perfectionists like their parents. Optimalist parents know when to disappoint their children, like slowing down when a child falls, letting them experience frustration and pain, or not helping when they spill food everywhere, or stuff rice up their nose.
Letting kids find solutions through failure, even cutting financial support when old enough so they plan their future early.
Second, value intrinsic qualities: courage, effort, resilience, kindness. Perfectionist parents focus only on external achievements: first place exams, medals, model student titles. What's the difference? If only results matter, kids think they're valued only when succeeding, breeding failure, fearing perfectionists. But parents who affirm efforts and character traits teach kids their worth isn't tied to grades or outcomes, helping them value process and embrace optimalism. Now, applying optimalism to intimate relationships, many dream of perfect partners before dating, expecting total compatibility. Early on, they feel dreams came true, but inevitably discover their partner's flaws. Perfectionists fear failure, treating every conflict as catastrophic. Their black and white thinking demands either soulmates or separation. But optimalists accept failures as natural bumps on the road. Disagreements and disappointments are normal. They find middle ground, embracing flaws, accepting imperfection, and actively nurturing the relationship. Finally, let's explore applying optimalist thinking to reshape ourselves. We'll cover these points. First, embrace our own ignorance. Perfectionists dread saying, "I don't know." They see it as weakness. After colleagues discuss unfamiliar news, they'll cram. If questioned, they rage. Simply put, perfectionists fear the unknown with anxiety, while optimalists accept imperfect knowledge, finding peace in admitting uncertainty. Second, accept life's inevitable suffering. Though seeking joy and avoiding pain is human, no one escapes suffering completely. Perfectionists can't grasp this. When suffering hits, losing loved ones, accidents, career failures, heartbreak, they reject reality, drowning in grief. But optimalists acknowledge suffering, let themselves feel low, then see its gifts: compassion, empathy, and wisdom. Suffering teaches us to respect life in reality. This appreciation for life brings us closer to happiness. Third, practice self-compassion. The author shares a Buddhist working with accomplished Western scientists who despised themselves, struggling to forgive their or others' mistakes. Likely, lifelong demands for extreme self-discipline made them hypercritical, seeing only flaws in everyone. Truth is, only by truly understanding and forgiving ourselves can we empathize and treat others kindly. Say you forgive yourself for missing a key meeting due to a sudden fever. Then you won't snap when a colleague occasionally forgets plans. If you accept your nervous flub with a client, you won't mock that stuttering new salesperson. Optimalists know self-compassion enables world compassion. Don't be harsh on yourself or others, and happiness will bloom within. Finally, learn to listen. Perfectionists always want to fix things or people. So when loved ones confide, they jump to analyze problems and offer solutions. But when people open up, they're not always seeking help. Sometimes they just need to vent or be heard. Optimalists quietly listen when children share. They patiently hear friends complain about school conflicts or workplace frustrations. They accept imperfection, knowing unconditional acceptance. Creating a safe, warm space is the ultimate support. All right, that covers the book's core content. Let's recap the key points. First, perfectionism shows in three ways: rigid goals, impossible success standards, and suppressing negative emotions, leading to low self-esteem, depression, or anxiety. Second, the author's solution is optimalism. Unlike perfectionism, optimalism embraces flexible goals and reality-based success. When facing hardship, they accept their negative emotions. Lastly, the author offers practical advice for embracing optimalism in all life areas. Voltaire said, Perfection is the enemy of good. Perfectionism blocks happiness. Start now by releasing perfection and striving to be an optimalist.
You might discover happiness is surprisingly simple. Transcending perfection